Hello friends, Clage back with another Punishing Grey Raven video today, and since we are on the wind down for this current patch, getting ready for our big triple patch with 2 paid S ranks on it here in just over a week. Wow, that's scary. I thought I'd do something a little chill, a little fun, so I made a community post asking for any PGR related questions to do, like a Q&A, while we wind down this patch. So I picked out a chunk of the ones that I got in the comments for that, and I'm just going to go through them. So this is nothing, over the top or special. Just going to chill, have some fun, answer some viewer questions, because I know there are a lot of you who are new to the channel since I started doing PGR content regularly, and you figure this is a chance to get to know me and my taste and stuff a little bit better. So just going to go through these, have fun, kind of have a chill day with some content here. So let's get going so I don't take too much of your time, because God knows I'm going to talk way too long on all of these. But first one I have is, will you do any beginner's guides for PGR? And the answer to that is, it's definitely something I've considered multiple times and would like to do at some point, because I am a big proponent of helping onboard players for any game, whether it's competitive, whether it's single player, anything you do to get someone more in tune with learning the game they're checking out, you probably are going to more likely get them to stick with that game. So I've done a lot of tutorials over the years for fighting games. I have been a Metafy coach for Guilty Gear, so I'm big on teaching people both at the fundamental level and at the higher end min-maxing levels. So that probably shows through a lot in the way I talk and the way I organize like my guides and my videos, teaching people how to do stuff. But I definitely will consider doing beginner's guides. The thing is, that would be one of, if not the most important guide I could make. So I would want to do some very careful thinking and plotting out how I would want to do it to make sure it gets the exact info that needs to be there for new players, isn't too overly complicated or verbose, which is kind of a challenge because there's a lot that gets dumped on your lap when you start a gacha game, but especially one with a lot of mechanics like PGR. So it is definitely something I will consider if I get the time to do it properly, and I feel like I can do it proper justice. But that is not to say that PGR necessarily needs a ton of beginner guide content. We do have stuff like being able to do Celica's classes to learn all the various characters. You have the FOS courses as a beginner to get a bunch of the bare bones of combat and general gameplay figured out. And there are really good beginner's guides out there, both on YouTube. The Grey Raven site itself has an excellent beginner's guide to help you kind of get the stuff done in the early game you need to get done so you can unlock all the modes and stuff. So definitely a possibility, but it would be something that I would have to feel like I can do right and have the time to do it properly. And it may sound weird to say that a beginner's guide would take a lot more careful research and effort than something like a character guide, but at the end of the day, a character guide is teaching you how to do a rotation and what a character's role on a team is, which actually isn't that complicated when you get right down to it. A beginner's guide wouldn't technically be complicated, but you're dropping a boatload of information about multiple topics all at once, so I'd have to make sure I can do it right, is basically the long and short of that one. So next question, will PGR get a PvP mode? Outside of the things we got, like the recent prop hut mode, the cats versus rats hide and seek game, and little mini games like that, I sincerely doubt it, for a multitude of reasons. So the big thing is that if you wanted to do PvP mode in this game, and I'm operating on the assumption that it's the idea of, would we get to actually like do PGR combat PvP? The amount of resources that would take to do right would be not trivial at all. You would need way better netcode than PGR currently has if you've ever played co-op or done the co-op modes. It doesn't exactly have the strongest peer-to-peer because it doesn't particularly need to. That's not the purpose of PGR, so there's not a good reason to invest in very meticulous netcode. But you'd need good rollback netcode that can keep up with the speed and action of PGR, but the other thing is you would have to dedicate a large amount of the team to balancing it. If we just threw the characters we have now as is into a PvP mode, that would be a hot mess for way too many reasons for me to list out here. But on top of that, PvP in gacha games is kind of like the ultimate pitfall. At the end of the day, it is not a thing about, showing your skill or ability in the game. It is, did you run into a whale in PvP mode? I've never been a big fan of PvP in gacha games because, the joke pay to win comes up in a lot of competitive genres. Fighting games with DLC characters, first-person shooters, all that kind of stuff. But in a gacha game, it's actually real. Like, that's a thing that can very much happen in PvP mode. So I don't see a world where PvP ever becomes a thing in PGR, at least not within the game itself. Now, if I could live in Magical Christmas Land and we could convince Arxis to collaborate with Kuro and do a PGR Air-2D fighting game, then you have my attention. That is a thing we could absolutely do. Will that happen? Almost certainly not. But hey, what's the point in dreaming big if you don't, if you're going to dream at all, right? I get it. PvP would be very tantalizing in this game. The idea of doing this combat engine in a 1v1 or even like a 3v3 arena style thing sounds very tantalizing, very interesting. But it would have to be reworked completely in multiple ways, and I don't see them allocating resources to something like that when there's already so much they have to focus on with just continuing to update the game and keep it functioning as a live service. So, yeah, long answer, almost certainly not. Short answer, let's get a PGR fighting game, like an actual one. Like, I don't care if arena fighter, 2D fighter, whatever. Something for that, I would be down. Absolutely. Let's see here. Next question. Who will you prefer when they finally drop in Punishing Gray Raven? Vergil Disnuts or Dante's D's Nuts? Yes, I did type out that whole question because I'm a child. Anyway, I love Devil May Cry. It's a very important series to me for a few different reasons, most of which have to do with like my personal lifetime, how it impacted my life in various ways, but that's a story for another time. But very important series to me. I really, really like DMC. I'm a huge fan of almost all the main characters in Devil May Cry. But if you're going to force me to pick one, I'm going to take Vergil for a few reasons. The main thing being that I am trained and studied in Iaido and Kendo. I am a gigantic Japanese sword nerd and have been for a very long time. I got into this stuff even before the days of making fun of Reddit mods and people in fedoras holding nodachis and stuff like that. So I'm old if you haven't picked up on that in this channel. I am 42 years old. I am a gamer boomer and then some, but I have trained in Iaido quite a bit. My Shihan unfortunately moved away well over a decade ago, so my skills are absurdly rusty and out of practice, so I can't claim to actually be much of a practitioner anymore, but it's something that's very important to me. My desk in my office has a officer's katana from the 1700s that's bronzed and has the swordsmith's insignia on it. That was one of the first gifts my wife ever got for me after we had been dating for a couple years. And just in general, if you give me a character that looks badass and does badass things with a katana, yeah, that's what I'm gonna pick. Like, I am a very simple nerd at heart, and if you want a little bit more in-depth explanation, I don't know, listen to Bury the Light. Like, is that a good enough answer? I hope so. I think that covers everything I need to explain about why I'm picking Vergil in that fight. So, but nonetheless, absolutely looking forward to the DMC collab. I think that's going to be so sick, and I can't wait to get to experience it, and I can't wait to cover it and talk about it on the channel. I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see. Next question. Name 3 characters you would triple S and the reason. Okay, so since I am a filthy whale, as many of you have noticed and pointed out in the comments here and there, I'm going to cheat on this question a little bit and change it from triple S-ing a character to triple S plussing characters, because I already triple S every new character. That's just what I do. It's the amount of disposable income I put into PGR. So we're gonna cheat and we're gonna go. Who would I triple S plus? And what are the reasons for doing so? So first and foremost is Crimson Weave. I would absolutely just immediately take her with triple S plus in a heartbeat. Like a lot of people for PGR, this is the character that got me into this game. I was just kind of sitting around, falling down the YouTube hole, and this video of someone soloing, I believe, Trailblazer with Crimson Weave came up, and I'm like, what is this game, and why have I never heard of it? And then I'm like, this can't be a mobile game. There's no way. The combat's too in-depth. There's too much going on. And then I found out it is a mobile game, and it is actually that in-depth. So I couldn't not triple S plus Crimson Weave. Like, she's the reason I got into this game. She is a character after my own heart in so many ways that I'll explain in a different question. But yeah, no-brainer. This is like... Actually, I'll just explain it here. Let's just go for it. So, I mean, she is Lightning Katana, right? She's a lightning character with a Nodachi, and she emanates lightning energy when she does her attacks. My OC, my namesake, Clage, who I have written and had for, God, 25 years now? I'm a nerd, can you tell? But all the way back when I did, like, online role-playing in AOL chat rooms. Yes, I am that old. My OC, Clage, uses a katana and emits lightning energy. And it's very nerdy, and it's very self-serving, because that's what OCs are for. Like, if you don't make your OC everything you want him to be and not give a damn what anybody else thinks, you're doing it wrong. Do what you want with your OCs. I mean that with absolutely no irony whatsoever. But, like, Crimson Weave is just a mirror image of a lot of what I designed for Clage over the years. So seeing that in a game that I can play and do stuff with is just... I literally could not have asked for a more ringing endorsement for me to check out a game and a character. So she absolutely gets triple S plus treatment. Next one, Han Ying. I love this character design. I think this is one of the most gorgeous character designs in any gacha game I've ever seen. She's incredibly elegant. She just has a regalness to her that's very alluring. But more to the point, her ult mode is she lets the hair down and she starts dashing everywhere and doing, dagger assassin rogue style spam. And I'm just like, bro, you hit me square in the chest with this design. Like, everything about Han Ying's design is peak. I have not gotten to the Soaring Beyond story chapter yet. I can't wait to get to it because I want to get more lore and more focal points about Han Ying. Yes, we got her side story chapter isn't totally accurate, but her A rank style chapter back in the day. And so I'm really excited to see what they do with this character in the main story going forward once I get to that. But she would also get the triple S plus treatment. The last one will probably actually surprise some people, but the other one I would do, which is especially funny considering she's S rank, is Luna Laurel. And the reason for this is that this was my first S rank in PGR. This was the character I got from the beginner banner on my 40th pull. And she absolutely hard carried me through the early days of my account and getting things up and going in PGR. And for those of you who just started with the global sync and you're still building stuff up and seeing that it takes time. Like, all gacha games take time to get your account built up, but especially a game like PGR, you gotta very slowly go through the motions to get everything built up. But let me tell you, 2.5 years ago when I started this game and it didn't even have a PC client yet, boy, that start was intimidating and rough. Doing Phantom Pain Cage with my 3 built characters, because I had a dark team and nothing else, so I got to send Kamui at one line of fights, Vera at one line of fights, and Luna at another line of fights, because that was all the characters I had. I didn't have anyone else built to do Phantom Pain Cage back then. But Luna absolutely carried me for probably the first 4 or 5 months of my account. So she would absolutely get triple S plus treatment just on the principle of having that. So those would probably be the 3 that, like, if you gave me the opportunity, would I do it for a whole bunch of characters? Absolutely, I would. But I definitely have my pet characters and my favorites, and those are 3 of them. But I'm hard pressed to tell you there's a character I don't like in this game. Like, almost all of them appeal to me in some way or other. There are a couple A ranks that if you remove them from the game, I probably wouldn't notice all that much. But when it comes to most of the mainline characters, so many of them would be worthy of it. So those are the 3 I'd probably pick. Next question. Any possibility of lore videos? Okay, so the short answer is yes, it is possible. Absolutely. The story is a huge part of the reason I enjoy this game. And I would love to get involved in discussing more of the lore and having that be part of the channel in the future. The long answer is that, kind of how I discussed the beginner's guide earlier, I would have to do a ton of research and time and writing a lot of notes and scripting before I would feel remotely comfortable doing lore videos. If you make, if you make a mistake in a character guide, there's always the rush to try and get new character guides out as soon as possible, because the longer you take, the less likely it is people are going to watch your guide because they've already watched 3 other guides on the character. But even if you make a mistake or omit something or don't realize there's optimizations you could have talked about in a character guide, that's pretty easy to fix, and it's pretty inoffensive to fix, right? Like I did this with the Han Ying character guide, where I did the updated video talking about her updated Warzone rotation, which I could have updated even further, because as it turns out, you can do the 3 red, 1 yellow ping every single rotation if you're very meticulous about it and how you do the Warzone run. But doing a correction like that or updating something like that is mostly inoffensive. Like, it's not the end of the world that you need to go back and say, hey, I missed this in the character guide, or here's this optimization I didn't talk about. Doing that for lore stuff is much more not great, in my opinion. If you're going to talk about the lore, if you're going to discuss the in-depth topics that come with lore in a game like PGR that has so much high concept, so much sci-fi, and very, very theory fighter level story stuff, where a lot is left up to your own interpretation, but also there is so much noun in this game. There is so much individual items that you have to kind of compartmentalize and think about when you're talking about the lore and the story of PGR. It is dense. It's very, very dense. And you don't want to end up sharing wrong information about the lore. You have to be careful with what you do share, because you don't want to out and out do spoilers without making sure people have, warnings on videos that there will be spoilers for X, Y, and Z. There's a lot more pitfalls to doing lore videos than there is teaching people how to play a character or how to play the game writ large. Would I like to do that? Yes, absolutely. But much like a beginner guide, and even more so than the beginner guide, it would take a lot of my free time and a lot of effort and writing and scripting and frankly rereading multiple parts of the story before I would feel comfortable doing that, because I don't want to do slop on lore. Like that would just be a bad look all around, and I would not want to do that in any kind of lazy form. So I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's just going to be one of those, will I ever have the time to delve into the lore section? Hard to say. And a lot of games like this, if someone does lore videos, oftentimes that's like the main thing they do. They don't do like a bunch of character guides or combat guides or stuff like that. There are people who do all of it, and man, y'all are PGR's strongest soldiers doing that. But if you're gonna do lore, you have to commit really hard, and I wouldn't want to half-ass it and then end up having to drop it. So it's not something that's going to happen soon, but would I like to do it down the road? Definitely. So I guess we'll see. If I can fit it in, maybe you'll see some Flage lore stuff down the line. Next question. What other games are you interested in besides PGR? So this is only like non-PGR centric question, but I figure why not? We're all probably playing games besides PGR. But for me, there are 2 massive constants in my life for gaming. One is Guilty Gear, especially the Legacy Guilty Gears, the XX series and the Xrd series, and Castlevania. And if you've been on this channel before, you already know why, but I've talked about how I have been a competitive Guilty Gear player for over 22 years. Guilty Gear is the most important game to ever come into my life. It changed a lot about me during some very important formative years. So that is a series near and dear to my heart. I still play Guilty Gear regularly. I still teach people from like my Discord community and other stuff about the game and how to play it, and going to events, doing commentary, and then actually working the floor at events like Combo Breaker and Evo. Fighting games are a huge part of my life, if you haven't figured that part out. So that's always there. Castlevania is very important to me. I have been in the speedrunning scene since 2010. I worked for Games Done Quick as the safety director for almost 8 years. So speedrunning is also a huge part of my life, and the biggest game in that section of my life is Castlevania Bloodlines. I have been basically the premier runner of that game for almost 15 years now. I have set and improved my own world records almost countless times at this point, and I still am trying to get a new John Morris expert mode run in that game to kind of put the cap on that particular category for the foreseeable future. So that's something I do on the regular. As for games that are either not out yet or other stuff that I'm interested in, the game I'm most hyped for to come out this year is Ghost of Yote. Ghost of Tsushima instantly rocketed into probably my top 5 games of all time when I played it a few years back on stream. Again, I'm a giant Japanese sword nerd, so getting to play the ultimate samurai power fantasy game with the kind of storytelling it did, how beautiful it was, the combat mechanics I could write dissertations on. I'm just so stoked that I get another one of those games. That's amazing. I cannot wait to check out Ghost of Yote. Super psyched for that. Currently, I've been going through a chunk of the Ace Combat series on my stream. I've never really played the Ace Combat series, but I loved like dogfight sims as a kid. I played a ton of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and the Star Wars flight sim games. I played a lot of like World War II flight sim games back on MS-DOS. That's an operating system for you kids who may not be aware. But so checking out Ace Combat's a really cool, very, very cool series. I'm really enjoying playing that. So I've gone through 0 and 4. I'm gonna do 5 next, and then 7 after that, and then maybe I'll go back and check out some of the other ones in the future. But that's been a lot of my stream time lately. I also do a lot of randomizers, especially over on my stream. If you want to stop by the stream sometime, feel free, twitch.tv/Clage. I've been a full-time streamer since 2018. I've been streaming since I started doing speedruns, so all the way back in 2010 before Twitch was even called Twitch. So if you want to come hang out, I stream all the time, typically Wednesday through Sunday each week. So if you want to come check that out, feel free. I don't do a lot of PGR streaming, although I might again in the future to work on practicing harder fights that I want to do demonstration videos on or solos on, stuff like that. But feel free to drop by and hang out if you feel like it. But I also do a lot of randomizers. Every Friday night I do the Link to the Past Cross Super Metroid randomizer. I've been doing that for many, many years now. Both those games were a huge part of my childhood, so it's fun to know just enough like minor speedrun stuff to fire up those randomizers and be able to knock them out in usually around 3.5 hours. And it's just a good time. I try to put on a good performance for those. They're fun to go through. I play the Elden Ring randomizer a lot. For whatever reason, I am a weird sicko that just is like, yeah, I think it'd be funny if a rune bear was in the first cave that I walked into with like 3 other large enemies that want to eat my face. I'm a sicko, basically, is what it boils down to. But in general, 2D fighting games, RPGs of all types, action games are my mainstays, and then old school platformers, because again, I'm a gamer boomer. Like my first console as a kid was an Atari 5200. So there you go. But that's some of the other stuff I play besides PGR. Next question. What are your tips to not drown in Warzone? Okay, so first and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room. You cannot overcome people who spend more on this game than you do to close the gap in any of the leaderboard modes, including Warzone. If someone has a team of triple S characters and you have a team of double S characters, you are not going to catch them in performance. It doesn't matter how much you grind, how much you min-max your rotation, how meticulous you are with your memory setups, your resonances, all that stuff. You are not going to overcome a spinning gap. So the first thing I would say about not drowning in Warzone is do not sweat if you have a bunch of people outpacing you by a notable margin, because that is not a difference in skill. That is a difference in how much money they put into the characters. Like, just straight up, kind of like I talked about with the PvP question earlier. There are certain things you're not going to overcome in a game like this by just playing, and Warzone is one of them. So what I do suggest about Warzone is look at people whose scores are similar to yours, and you can click on the profiles of everyone and go down to their member list and see what the ranks are of the characters that they used in this week's Warzone. So just figure out what the potential character compositions would be for the various Warzones available, because now sometimes we have one that's split, like we had one last week where you could do either physical or dark, stuff like that. But just look and see who they would have used for their teams. Look at the ranks on the characters and then compare them to your own. If they're similar and you're way, way behind, if you're like hundreds of thousands behind them, that's when it's time to consider looking at, am I making mistakes in the rotation? Are there ways I can optimize my rotation better? The evolutions, the ranks of the characters don't tell the entire story, because it's entirely possible that someone could have like 100,000 points on you, and you compare your two teams and you're both, let's say you're both all double S, like you're just running 3 double S characters, both running the same team, right? It could be that maybe they have better optimized memory setups. Maybe they have more resonances on their weapons, things like that. So keep in mind that the rankings, if you click on someone and go down to their member list, don't tell the entire story, but they will give you a good enough idea to know if you are in the same ballpark as the people you're competing with. If you're way behind, that's when you look for where I can improve. Maybe my rotation could be smoother. Maybe I'm missing something about this particular team's rotation that I can optimize to have better Warzone scores. Maybe I need to reconsider my memory setups a little bit, or making sure you have optimal skill rolls on all your memories, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, don't sweat the leaderboards in this game. It's a gacha game. You can absolutely pay to win your way up to the top of any leaderboard in this game if your wallet is fat enough and diligent enough to do so. So the important thing in Warzone is don't treat it like a competition. I know that's weird to say because it has a leaderboard and your rewards do increase the better you do. But keep in mind, the rewards in Warzone are probably the overall least impactful from the shop that you use them in. There is useful stuff in the war shop. Obviously, leap chips are very important. We're getting leaps fast and furious now. Having memory resonance picks is nice, although we have so much serum and it's so easy to reroll memories now, these feel less important than ever. And then if you're short on memories, you can buy them with Warzone points, but leap chips are kind of the thing you get out of the Warzone. So don't fret this mode too much. Don't worry about the competition aspect of it. Just treat it as a thing where you are trying to improve your own PGR gameplay every week. Try to best yourself. Don't worry about other people's scores, other people's, rank, because again, if they're spending more than you, no amount of skill is going to make up that gap. That's just the facts and the life of gacha games with leaderboards. So that's my biggest advice on how not to drown in Warzone. Treat it more like a self-improvement thing, and try to just do as best as you can. And if you notice you're way behind other people with similar rank characters, do a little research. See where you can improve, what might make the team more efficient, what might make your gameplay more efficient. There's tons of ways to do it. And if you approach it that way, I think you'll feel a lot better about the mode. Let's see. One last question here, and I saved this one for last because now we're just going to do Sophie's Choice things. So it just says straight up, what are your favorite music and story chapters for PGR? So, all right. Well, music is it's truly Sophie's Choice. Absolutely 100% Sophie's Choice. First and foremost, and I don't even think we can get it in the main thing. I think it's only in the guild you can have this song playing. But first and foremost would be Hikari. Hikari was the first PGR song I ever heard across my YouTube feed. instantly got my attention because of the build up and the hype and the nature of it. So that along with Crimson Weave was how I learned about PGR, even found out this game existed. So that one has to be on the list. It just, by the nature of it getting me into the game and it still being one of the all-time bangers on the soundtrack, Ikari has to be there. To the Limit obviously is way up in my top songs in this game. You hear it playing in my background all the time when I'm doing videos. I absolutely love this song. It's so unique. It's unlike anything they've done in the entire soundtrack, and it hits with a straightforward electro thump. I'm a big fan of that. I grew up on electronic music. I did DJ sets as a side gig for a while in my 20s, so I am very, very partial to just good old-fashioned pound the bass electronica. Next song I think I would put up there, and I don't, do we have it? Yeah, we do. Revelation. Same thing. This is like classic trance. This is just classic pound the dance floor, let's go trance with an incredible drop 5.5 minutes in. So, like, trying to pick out favorite songs on this it's just unfair. This has maybe the most consistently baller soundtrack I've ever heard in a game, period. And I am a big nerd about music. I adore music. I will talk about music all day, every day. I was a band nerd in high school. Again, like I did DJing in my 20s. I love me some music, man. So trying to narrow down the best songs on one of the greatest gaming soundtracks I've ever heard in my entire life, that's just not fair. that's brutal, man. but those are three that I think stick out for me the most. As for the chapters, I had to think about this one for a bit, and it took me a while, and I'm still not confident in my answer, but I'm gonna throw it at you anyway. So, first one, the Surviving Lusum. I think this chapter is incredibly important because it gets back to showing the horror and the sheer despair that comes with being in a post-apocalyptic world. Like, PGR comes out of the gate kind of swinging with how gnarly and grimy it can be. You know, it's very quick to show you this is post-apocalyptic. Stuff is a mess. Earth is in shambles. But it very quickly also kind of gives you the sanitary side of it. There are a lot of chapters where we spend a lot of time in Babylonia or in areas that are much more clean and tidy, while the Earth is down here being ravaged and is, you know, on the razor's edge of being lost permanently. So the Surviving Lusum, even though it is a choice I have to make while acknowledging that this is not an easy chapter to read. This might be the hardest chapter to read so far in the entire game for my salt, because it is dark. It is very, very full of despair. It is very full of the realities of what it means to be in a post-apocalyptic war fighting for the survival of humanity. But I think that's important. I think that helps make the triumphs and make the moments where a victory is found that much more important in this story. It makes it that much more impactful, and it's something I really appreciate about games like this. Arknights was also very good about this, about gacha games that are not afraid to go to very dark places and show you. It's like, no, it's not just a post-apocalyptic game because that's, you know, the trope that you do with a lot of gacha games. We mean it. This is a dark world. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to good people. Not every hero survives. I think the Surviving Lusum captures that in a wonderful way. And while it is not what I would call a fun chapter to read, I think it's incredibly important, and it's one of the ones that has absolutely stuck with me. Next one, Spiral of Kronos. This chapter is so high concept, but it's high concept in a way that was still not impossible to follow. And just the absolute nature of this whole chapter, getting Lee's backstory, the nature of the Hetero Tower, everything about this chapter is just utterly fascinating to me. I thought this was such a neat way to go about kind of progressing the mainline story and dealing with this, you know, absolutely looming what do we do about this problem with the Red Tide and the Hetero creatures. And the way they approached it was just so cool to me. I thought this chapter was incredible. I really, really like Spiral Chronos. It really hit home for me. I think it was just told in a really unique and interesting way and has some incredible payoffs in it. And probably the last one is the last chapter I just read, Polaris Bond. I will freely admit I probably need to reread a lot of this chapter. This chapter was the most high concept so far, and a lot happened. Holy hell. A lot happens in Polaris Bond. And because it's still a newer chapter and I know a lot of people have not read it yet, I'm not going to go into anything that could possibly spoil stuff. But the reveals in this chapter and the overall impact on the broader world building and lore in this chapter is nuts. The things, I'm still kind of reeling from the reveals that happen in this chapter and explaining some of the overarching larger plot points of PGR and going, oh God. Like, I said that out loud a lot reading Polaris Bond. So this, if you ask me this question again in like a month, I could easily see myself choosing another chapter for my third if I'm going to pick 3 on this. But where it stands right now and how far I am in the story, this one did stuff. And I'm still kind of reeling and recovering and processing all the implications that the Polaris Bond chapter brought with it. It was long. This chapter was huge, but it was incredibly interesting, and I'm chomping at the bit to find out what's next. I really want to see where this story is going, and I know we're coming up on some incredibly important story chapters here very, very soon. So, but those would probably be the ones I would pick of those. So, that's all of them for now. Thank you very much, by the way, for those of you that submitted questions. I definitely appreciate it. Like I said, just want to do something a little different and fun. I don't expect this to be a banger of a video or anything, but we're just we're waiting for this next gigantic patch. I should be getting my test server access here in the very short future, so I can test out Lucia and Nanami, and that will hopefully let me get the guides out a little bit more expediently for y'all. Still gonna have to do a lot of research. I want to make sure I do stuff right, but I'm hoping to really knock out a bunch of content for this big patch. I have a lot of stuff planned, so there's going to be a lot of videos for the next patch. So might be a little slow here until we get rolled over into next week, but we will definitely keep the train rolling once that patch drops, and I'm super looking forward to it. But let me know what you thought of this. If you'd like me to do another one of these down the road, I'm definitely down for it. There will certainly be other points in the year where we're winding down a patch, and there's not a lot to talk about until we get the next update. So if this was an interesting style video for you, if you want to ask some questions of your own, then let me know. I'm certainly down to do more of these in the future. But that's going to do it for this one. As always, appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for the likes, the subs, and the comments. Definitely appreciate the feedback. I do try to read all of them and take into account what people have to say and what they'd like to see. And I can't promise I'm going to be able to appease all of you, but I'm going to do my best to keep doing stuff that makes this channel worth coming back to and learning more about PGRs. So, and yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. If you want to do the YouTube stuff, as always, it's appreciated. If you want to drop by my stream, feel free. I link my stream in every description. And yeah, we'd love to have you there. I'm basically just a big dumb idiot who does big dumb idiot things on stream, and things are pretty chill. So feel free to drop by sometime. But that's all I got for now. Y'all have a good day. Take care of yourselves. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.